All right, let's finally get to this video. I want to do it for a while. I've had some people mention in the comment section they want to see a comparison or talk about different draft classes. So I want to compare a then and now for the 2014 NFL football draft class, whatever you want to call it. The rookies for 2014, players that have cards in that year. Wild year for cards. Products were tons of products came out from Panini and Topps during this time period. Upper Deck also had the license to college, so they came out with some sets too. I think they had like 5 sets tops maybe back then. But I'm gonna make a list of then and now, and this is just based on I did some Terapeak research and went through Beckett magazines and kind of came to a consensus on where the player's hobby or values ranked then to now. So I've got September 14 here on the left and January 17, so that's present day now. And you guys can ramp up the post in the comment section, you know, things you don't agree with, and we can kind of create a discussion off this and maybe do some other years too. But I thought 2014 is when I really got into breaking a ton of hobby boxes, and I had a blast with the draft class. Some of the quarterbacks have not lived up to the hype or what people expected of them, so it's kind of diminished the draft class a little, but it's still one of the, I think it's going to be one of the greatest drafts ever for wide receivers. So let's start off with number one. This is September 14th, so this would be basically week 1 2014 NFL season, who had the most hobby or value, and it was a pretty easy one. A lot of hype. Johnny Manziel, his stuff was double to triple of any other player in the draft class at this time. There's a lot of hype for him. I think a lot of people knew his stuff wasn't going to be able to hold that value when stuff gets that high. It's kind of like Dak Prescott and Zeke right now, although I don't think they're douchebags, so had to say it. But I think their stuff's going to drop just because it's too hyped up and high right now. And when 2017 stuff comes out, I mean, people are going to buy the 2017, not buy as much 2016. It's not going to stay at those levels. I mean, stuff always drops off when it does that. But we're getting off on a rant here. So Johnny Manziel, number 2. He was the 2 or 3 pick, but Blake Bortles, he had kind of a rough season this year. He took a step backwards for sure. The Jags were terrible this year. I don't know. There's a lot of hype there's always gonna be a lot of hype for a quarterback drafted in the top 5. So Bortles is my 2. 3 is another quarterback. He was late 1. Teddy Bridgewater. Not sure what the future holds for him. I don't know if he'll play next year. They said Sam Bradford's supposed to be the starter, so it's just a shitty break for a promising young player. 4, I got Sammy Watkins. I think he was the first wideout off the board in that draft, and he's somewhat lived up to expectations. Probably not because of injuries have kind of hampered his production, but he did have a 1,000-yard season in 2015. 5, I got Derek Carr. He was still drafted in the first round. There wasn't a whole lot of crazy buzz for him, and I think part of it was because of his brother, David, but that's another discussion. I think the Texans shied away from him and drafted Clowney because of that. And then I'm going to put 6. I'm going to put Clowney. And this could be easily debated that he could move up a few slots. There's definitely hype for his cards. I'm just not sure how high I want to put him on the list. He's a defensive player. It's often a lot harder for defensive players to garner interest or value. I mean, people like offense, I guess. So next up, I've got Mike Evans. Top 10 pick, I believe. Don't quote me on that. But he's 3 straight 1,000-yard seasons. He looks like he's on the path to a fantastic career. 8, first round wide receiver for the Giants, Odell Beckham. He's definitely exceeded expectations. One of the finest wideouts in the NFL. I think these two have really lived up and surpassed what was expected of him, and that's always great because a lot of players don't ever live up to the hype. So 9, I've got Kelvin Benjamin. who had a great rookie season, hurt in 2015, and last year kind of a up and down year. So, and 10, I've got a quarterback for the Pats. He could be their starter someday. I don't know. I don't think Brady's ever going to retire, so he'll probably get traded at some point. But Jimmy Garoppolo. So that's kind of how I saw it back then, or how the market kind of was back then. And now let's move forward to present day. This is now, so this is today pretty much. So number one on the list was pretty easy after doing the research. If you asked me this 1 year ago, I would have said a different name. I would have said Beckham 1, but today it's Derek Carr for number 1. His stuff has probably doubled on average since the end of last season to the end of the 2015 season. His play really picked up the past 2 seasons, so he's definitely earned this number 1 spot. And 2 on my list, I've got Odell Beckham. After his rookie season, his stuff went crazy, went through the roof. It's definitely leveled off since then, but that's just because cards can't stay as high as they get at some point. It's kind of like Zeke, so his stuff will definitely probably be half as much as it is now next season. 3, I've got a defensive player for the Raiders, so they've got 2 of the top 3 players in this one. Khalil Mack, and he doesn't have it looks like he has as many autos as the other players. He's not in any upper deck products for autos. He doesn't have a contenders auto. But the stuff he does have sells for fantastic amounts for a defensive player. So I had to put him at 3. So he was, back then he did not even make the top 10, even though he was very highly drafted. I think he was number 2 pick. Yeah, I think he was 2 and Bortles was 3. I'm just going off the top of my head on these. Okay, 4. Right now, his stuff sells pretty well. I don't think it sells for as much as it should, considering the type of player he's become. But Mike Evans, 4. That might be just because he's on Tampa. So Mike Evans, 4. 5. His stuff still sells somewhat. Not like it used to, but he's still got some hobby. Blake Bortles, 5. And then 6. Jimmy Garoppolo. He had 2 or 3 nice games to start the season, so plus he's a Patriots quarterback, so that definitely hyped his stuff up. So Garoppolo 6, 7. I've got Teddy. His cards definitely still have some value. They've dropped, I don't know, 50-60% lately. They're not going to come back until he starts playing again. So 8 on the list, I have Kelvin Benjamin. His stuff sells pretty well. Yeah, I don't have anything else really to say about that one. 9, I've got Clowney. He had a great season, but I think people kind of forgot about him. His first 2 seasons were hampered with injuries, and he lost mostly all of his hobby during that time period, and people have kind of looked past him, I think, a little bit. And then the 10th spot, I've got 2 players. We'll just do a 1A and 1B. And they're both tailbacks. Tailbacks don't get any love these days, but Devonta Freeman, he's a great player. He's a Pro Bowler. And Carlos Hyde, who almost had 1,000 yards this season. So a lot of players that didn't make the list, their cards aren't worth much. Mettenberger, A.J. McCarron, Tom Savage, and I go on and on with these guys. But and then there was a list of players that I called others receiving votes, and on that list I had, so these are players that were close to making it, but I don't think had enough to get on there. Probably my favorite player from the class, Brandon Cooks, Devontae Adams, Jarvis Landry could easily be in one of these bottom spots. Clinton Dix, Dante Moncrief, Jordan Matthews, Allen Robinson, who had a fantastic 2015 season, but he had a pretty bad 2016 season. Johnny Manziel still has some value, but not much to talk about. And one of the best defensive tackles in the league, Aaron Donald for the Rams. So I looked up his hobby. His stuff doesn't sell for much at all, considering how great of a player he is. And that's just probably because he plays on defense. So that's all. I mentioned everybody. Jeremy Hill is probably down here somewhere. So there's the 2014 rookie class, kind of how I see it, and how things have shaped over the past 2.5 years. So I'm gonna try to do some more of these. I'll see what kind of reception I get. So that's it, guys. Later.